Welcome, Robert. Thank you so much. First of all, this is incredible for me to have you on here. You are a force to be reckoned with. You are an internationally known advocate who has garnered so much support both on the state level and the federal level for change, helped thousands of lives, and I'm so pleased to have you on as a guest. Welcome to Survivors of Stalking. We are an awareness campaign that involves podcasting, blogging, social media outreach, and victim support for people that have dealt with cyberbullying, stalking, harassment, and legal abuse through the court system. So I am just wanted to say how much I appreciate your time because I know you're a busy man. You're flying all over the place. So we can just talk. I love what you said on the phone the other day. We don't need a script because I know you and I
Yeah.
can just vibe.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
Of course.
I hate always pre-scripted stuff. I rather just go off the cuff and, whatever happens, happens.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I would love to, definitely hear about your, if you want, whatever you feel comfortable sharing, about your past and what you experienced, and then to talk about your advocacy work. And I definitely, one of the things that I'm trying to highlight through this awareness campaign is the fact that legal abuse is now a subset of post-traumatic stress disorder. It's on the PTSD spectrum. So it's in the DSM now. We are seeing an unprecedented burden upon the mental health and public health systems in general because of what's happening in court. And the court systems, for lack of a better way, are being used to harass, stalk, and bully victims. And many people don't see it that way, but really they are not only survivors of the family court system, but they are survivors of legal harassment,
oh
legal
yeah.
legal abuse, and oftentimes stalking when a perpetrator can't get access to their victim. Maybe they're going through the court system, maybe there's police involved. They use the court system to harass, they use
Yep.
that to inflict suffering. So please, whatever you would like to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I have lived experience in the family court, went through it for about 16 years, spent $700,000 and went through about 43 plus false allegations. They call them silver bullets. Never arrested, never convicted. They were all done by proxy. Again, they weaponized CPS, they weaponized the court system against you. A lot of families or a lot of parents just walk away at some point because they give up on the system.
I- I'm glad that you brought that up, because I don't want anyone who's listening or who sees the posts about this to give up or walk away, because there is hope. You have identified so many wonderful tactics to fight back, strategies to fight back, including but not limiting to, in many states, you have changed the laws to help people.
Yeah, I did a meme not too long ago, and it said, when the abuser can no longer control you, family court became their new weapon of choice.
Yes,
And
that is
so
powerful.
you think you're getting away from them because you divorced them, and becomes 10 times worse because of the way the system works. They can legally abuse you, and not just once or twice, like literally for the next 18 years.
That is a really good point. It doesn't stop. The stopping point. There really isn't very much of a threshold. Yes, you have when the children, the offspring age out, but it can still continue. I mean, I knew people who were paying back child support, or people who were dealing with the impacts of false criminal charges well beyond the settling and resolution of any parental agreement or custodial planning.
Yep. The system, the way it's weaponized right now, there's even stuff called like I think there's a federal act called the Brady Act. Have you ever heard of it?
Yes, I have, but very briefly, so please excuse my lack of knowledge.
Yeah, it's okay. It's where if you get put on child support and then you find out you're not the parent and you owe, let's just say $70,000 in back child support, this Brady Act doesn't let them excuse that child support even if you're found not to be the parent and you still owe it, even though you have no access or rights to the child. That Brady Act makes you still liable for it, all the penalties for it, and you could even be put in jail. And people have been and had their driver's license taken away even after they found out they weren't the parent. So the system is very weaponized.
Oh, wow. And so, and within the Brady Act, we see
Correct.
institutionalized harassment and stalking,
Yeah,
um, especially from a person who was of such low moral character that they had so many partners that they weren't sure of who the actual parent was, the father. And so, then they led and manipulated a person into believing that they were.
correct.
That is
And
just evil. That is pure
yeah,
evil.
yeah. So there's stuff like that, and there's more laws coming that are even worse. There's one called child support upon conception. And it's exactly what it is. And in the law that they even wrote said all the mom has to do is name the father.
Oh my
So at
gosh.
this point, and there is no DNA test, and as soon as you get deemed the parent, then you get put on child support. And let's just say you found out 6 months into the pregnancy, then you owe 6 months of back child support immediately. So at that point, it's about to ruin our youth because imagine if someone gets pregnant in high school, now they get put on child support 6 months, then they get thrown in jail. Now they have a criminal record there and they get reported to their credit. Now their credit and they have a criminal record. So we barely kept that one out of Texas this last session, but they're trying all kinds of things.
Well, I think that that is disgusting. Thank God that you were able to stop that this legislative season. That is going to negatively impact so many people. Forget getting a student loan to go to college or graduate school for to get a professional career. Forget purchasing a home. We're talking about a housing crisis in the United States that is crippling the current generations that are coming of age, crippling them. Imagine that. And then, I mean, this is not meant to be political at all, but
No,
you have a lot of legislation about parenthood in general. Um, Abortion laws, conception, things like that coming out. And also, reduction in healthcare spending, Medicaid spending to support prenatal care, right?
Mhm.
So it's almost like an attack.
It is. It's crazy, but those are bills that are coming and even more. What I try to do is help people learn about legislation. And so I came up with about 10 bills per state, and they're already amended to their state codes to fix a lot of these things before it starts, to try and stop people weaponizing the system, um, and really disincentivize it before it does.
Thank God. And people can find these bills on your website and support in their state, correct?
Yeah, you can go to robertgarza.us and each bill is on there. You just pick whatever state you are. We have a shared parenting bill. Now, the shared parenting bill is very unique to a lot of other states because we have domestic violence built into the bill. A lot of shared parenting bills don't. If you have domestic violence substantiated, we believe, and so does everybody else, that nobody should have 50-50 if you have substantiated abuse.
Yes.
And that's built into the bill already.
And I think that's a really good segue into, a discussion about how domestic violence plays into this,
Mhm.
right? Because first of all, we know that there's implicit bias when it comes to the domestic violence field. In general, we see statistically that the people getting accused are men. The women are oftentimes not viewed as the perpetrator, that women's participation in domestic violence can be downplayed. It could also go the opposite direction. We've seen situations where people are a domestic violence victim, yet the court system does not support them through the
Right.
through the custody negotiations. They could be experiencing violence. There could be documented instances of violence, police reports, they could be in a domestic violence shelter and they're being found in contempt, or they're being found to be an alienator, or they're being made, they're having to share custody 50-50 or more, with their abuser. And sometimes the children are involved too. I mean, it's a disenfranchisement of children. I would love to hear what your experience is in helping people with that.
So being in this for about 16 years, we wrote a shared parenting bill, and in Colorado, it was about 2 months ago, and they put it through their legislature. And we had about 100 people show up, and about
Wow.
35 of them were from the domestic violence groups to oppose the
Wow.
bill. And
That
I was like,
is,
okay.
yeah.
And so there were senators and House reps up there, and they were listening because it was in a committee. And listening to it, I was like, oh my gosh, I got an idea after listening to enough of them that I kept rehearing that their evidence, the judge just totally ignored it. And so I asked the senators and House reps, I'm like, if someone else says that again, can you ask them if they were able to get their evidence in, like procedurally wise? And sure enough, they started asking every one of them every time they said it. And every one of them said they weren't able to get their evidence in, even though they had it.
Wow. Oh my
And so I
gosh.
went and talked to them afterwards, and even the bar came up and said one of the officers from the state bar, and she said that she testified that there was over 75% of the people in Colorado getting divorced and going through this litigation are pro se.
Wow.
That's scary.
75.
Yeah, think about this. So after being in there, I figured out that it wasn't a custody issue, it was a procedural issue. The people don't understand that have never been into family court that you can have all the documentation that you want, but if you can't get it in, the judge can't weigh it. At
Yep.
that point, it is not having anything to do with custody, is why that these domestic violence abusers get their kids, it's because they're outgunned, or because if you're in there trying to, do your case, and you're like, okay, I want to enter this in, and they object to it, if you can't set a predicate for it or get or override that objection, then your evidence doesn't come in. Every one of these people that were testifying that their abuser got the kids weren't able to get their evidence in. At that point, I understood it wasn't a custody 50-50 issue. It was a procedural issue with the
Wow.
family court system. That's how we can fix this. We fix
Yes.
that procedure and we can fix the problem.
I love that. I think that's immense. And I would love to talk more about procedure in general, especially because, that was something that affected me. I tried submitting evidence. I tried, to involve witnesses. I got the police involved. It's very, very difficult. It's so different from a criminal proceeding. So
Yep.
different, where there's, there's the assumption of equality and fairness and equity between parties. The prosecutor has to behave in such a way. The DA's office is trained in a specific, practice. So different in family court. And then
Yep.
you've got, I mean, most courts, you have a divorce court, you might have a child support court that is different. You might even be dealing with probate. There's different courts involved in this process. So I would love to talk more about that. I mean, even things like fraud and perjury.
Yep. Perjury is a state jail felony in every state. I haven't found one court that has prosecuted for it in 15 years. That's all over the country. I've been to 40 something states also, talked to legislators, judges, DAs, and they just don't prosecute for it.
Which is, I think, a huge miscarriage of justice. Why? Why is that not happening?
Survivors of stalking would like to take this moment to thank robertgarza.us for their collaboration. Head to their website to sign up today.
Welcome back.
Yeah, no problem.
So I think that's a huge conversation to be had. Are we empowering liars and cheaters? Is the
Empowering?
is the court system empowering liars and cheaters? Because
Well,
we, not we, meaning like, reform, but I just mean a society in general. What
so
does
I,
that say?
so the family court's a $60 billion industry. They make more money than all other courts combined, even criminal court. And that's the issue. The money is the issue. And even with the domestic violence, I saw when I was in that hearing that I
Oh,
told you,
yeah.
the committee hearing. So right after that, I tried to talk to the domestic violence groups and said, "Hey, I know what the issue is here. I think we can fix this." They didn't want to hear anything to do with it.
Wow.
And so I put a meme out and it said, "You cannot stand with domestic violence survivors while preserving custody defaults that enable abuse by turning parents into adversaries." So think about this. You can't be against domestic violence and still have the same court system that we have right now that enabled those abusers to abuse them.
Yeah.
And that custody default at this makes it to where people are adversaries. If you just start at equality, you still don't take the discretion away from judges. You go down from it. And so if you just start at equality and there's domestic violence, you automatically, boom, go way down here to the bottom of the barrel. At that point, you can go under it. I don't know if anyone's ever told you this, but a lot of people don't understand this. Standard possession
Hmm.
is like a line in the sand that legislators drew in about 30 years ago, and it told the judges, "Do not go below this standard here." And they said, "You have all this discretion, but don't go under this." That bottom of the barrel became the ceiling and the standard of what they give now. So standard possession was never meant to be standard. It meant don't go under this.
Wow.
That's where our problems came from. The judges were supposed to automatically start at equality and then don't go under this line. That bottom of the barrel became the standard. The scary part with it is that standard possession is about 29% to one parent. Expanded standard is 39% to one parent. The facts and the statistics, either parent that has less than 10, sorry, when the children have less than 10% or 40% basically to either parent. So think about that, 40% to either parent. It
Yep.
puts them at risk for alcoholism, teen pregnancy, high school dropout, incarceration. Standard possession is 29% to one parent. Our family courts have been sentencing to our children to being at risk for the last 50 years. If
Wow.
you're trying to stop domestic violence and all these other things, you fix the family and it fixes everything else. They're
Right.
breaking the family at this point. They're actually making more abusers by doing what they're doing.
That
But
is,
but they don't get the money. So VAWA is Violence Against Women's Act.
yep.
And so this federal funding that they get for these domestic violence people, if there is no domestic violence, there is no funding. If you take this, if you fix the system, there is no funding.
That's so true. So it's an incentive
It
to
is.
proliferate, and there's an institutional barrier. It's an institutional barrier that's built in based off of this standard where people will continue in a generational cycle of
Right.
those issues.
It
So,
never fixes it. It
wow.
perpetuates it. And
And
that's
purposefully, it seems
correct.
purposely.
It is because it's federal funding and the same scary part, Title 4D. That's why there's not shared parenting because then that money goes away and then there's less incentive for the state and less money. So if you really want to fix the system, we fix the family and we fix these problems, and all 10 of my bills will fix one of those things.
That's incredible. That is incredible. I think one thing that I would love to see is we I what I've noticed is, family court reform gets put into a corner. It's so niche. But what I'm sensing is that this is a larger holistic issue that is affecting the system. I would love to see people rally behind you, behind these initiatives that are non-traditional, maybe even beyond family court, like you talked about, because domestic violence is now viewed as a public health issue. Can we get public health workers involved? Can we get economists and business owners involved because it's affecting the economy? What does that look like? Insurance companies. There's a
Hmm.
lot of insurance reform, medical insurance coming around. And so can we get them involved? Because I would love to see that. I think you could have even more universal support.
Yeah. I think this is a big shift in what's going on now because of social media and the way that we're able to get this message across. When you take each one of these things and you can break it down as fast as I have,
Mhm.
with transparency and accountability and all kinds of things, it's educating people on a mass level what the problem and what the solution is, rather than making this big convoluted whatever or make it a he versus she argument.
Mhm.
It's not. This is a human rights issue and a child's rights issue. Um, this affects every gender just the same. And if it
Yeah.
doesn't affect you right now, when you have children, it's going to affect them. And so, and their children, and it's going to keep perpetuating until somebody fixes it.
What what can we do as a person? I think one important thing that we can touch on, but whenever you would like to, is not supporting the wrong people. There are a lot of advocates. There are a lot of nationwide legal experts, so to speak. There's a lot of noise and a lot of chatter going on, and people coming at this from all different directions. I think it's important that folks use legitimacy, credibility, logical reasoning to decide where they put their support. For example, I mean, you've obtained phenomenal, immense results. That's
Well,
huge.
it's really hard to discredit because I've lived 16 years of it. So I am a domestic violence survivor. In fact, my ex did do domestic violence. I have police reports of it. And so I've never brought that up, but they can't really come at me because I am one of you, right?
Yeah.
And so, but I don't use it as a crutch or put it out there because for what? I just fix the system. It's not about me. It's not about my kids or my story. It's about fixing the system. So all the other stuff that happened to me, it's happening to everybody else.
Mhm.
The problem is we're all survivors at this point.
Yes.
And so at some point you have to be a warrior or someone that's going to fix this problem. You have to put that what happened to me and just put it to the side and look to we need to fix the system somehow, some way. And so you just need to like I said, just become a warrior and turn your pain into purpose.
I love that. I'm turning the pain into purpose because I feel like that's even for me what I'm doing. I went through the family court system. I was in a domestic violence relationship. It took a lot of therapy and mediation, anger management, AA, even to come out the other side and successfully try to co-parent. A lot of forgiveness and self-work and soul searching. But then I was harassed using the legal system by someone completely not even a co-parent. And so I was in a very difficult situation where I had a person that I just wanted to leave me alone who was using the legal system against me. And since then, when I've getting involved in the court reform movement in general, I have seen a lot of folks make a difference, but for the most part, most people are just here to make a statement. You can't just make statements. You have to have actionable change. There has to be strategy and a plan forward. Or it's just, I've even seen people charging money, people making money off this with no credit, no credentials. no credibility, no legitimacy to their work, no business model to back up what they're saying, no data to support, and they're charging people who are already survivors of financial trauma.
Yep. No, I get it. In fact, that's why I don't charge for my advocacy. I tell people I'll train them every Monday and Wednesday. They just go to my website, sign up. I'll teach you whether you do anything with it or not. At least now you're armed with a little bit more knowledge about the court system than you had before. And
Yes.
it's free. There's no membership, there's no whatever. We come to your state, you're more than welcome to meet us at the Capitol. If we go to DC, you're more than welcome to go to DC. There is no charge for any of this stuff. I think it's everybody's American right to be able to do this and learn how to do this. I wish I would have known this, 10 years ago. We
Yeah.
would be at a totally different spot if I would have learned this 10 years ago. So hopefully you'll learn from what I've been through and just take it and run with it. But I'm hoping, well, I'm already seeing people that we've trained run for office and a bunch of other stuff because they
Yes.
understand what the problem is and they want to fix it. And so this hopefully sparks a whole nother generation of advocates on a massive level to basically right these wrongs that we've been through. And I always say it's the courts that are breeding advocates at a rate that they can't sustain because at this point now, because of social media also, we're
Yeah.
able to get together. Before, we used to think it was just us or it's just the system and would go after the judge or after the attorney or the guardian ad litem or the home study or the psych eval. It's a gang fight. It is everyone
Yeah.
against you. At that point, you're fighting for your life,
Yeah.
and it
Oh my
puts you in that
gosh.
fight or flight response. But hopefully, these bills will fix the system and it'll fix the problem.
How can folks sign up to come to these trainings that you're hosting, to come to these awareness, the virtual gatherings that are bringing
Mhm.
people together,
Yeah,
giving them the skills and the education that they need and helping them mobilize?
yeah. So it's on my website, robertgarza.us. You can hit join team and just fill out a little. I think it's five name, number, email address. It's very easy. We don't keep a lot of, we're not asking you personal questions.
Okay.
Once you're in there, it puts you into our Facebook Messenger group also. And so we send out an email every Monday and Wednesday, which reminds me I need to send one out today. And then people come in there and we train them on my bills. And then they get to go talk to their legislators. Now, the difference in what people are doing before and doing now after the bills is that you go in, you're like, hey, legislator, I'm your constituent. I have a problem. I fought for X amount of years to get 50-50. Here's a bill that would fix that. My ex is making false allegations. They don't prosecute for perjury, but my time taken, time back bill will fix it. If they're interfering with your child custody, here's three strikes law.
Yeah.
So you tell the legislator what the problem is, and I tell them what the solution is, and then they take it, they put a bill number on it, and they pass it through the legislature and let see if it'll pass to be a law. Utah just passed about 4 or 5 days ago, so they passed the time taken, time back bill.
Yes, that was huge. I know speaking over the phone, and seeing that, that is incredible because there is recompense, there is resolution and balancing of the scales for people that have been made to suffer. And like you said, it's an incentive, it's a disincentive for
Correct.
the corruption. It's a
Mhm.
disincentive for the silver bullets and allegations.
Yep.
And which I think is phenomenal
Yeah.
because other things haven't worked. Like you said,
Correct.
we're not prosecuting people for perjury, we're not prosecuting people for fraud, people are not going to jail for committing crimes. It's.
Yeah, I always tell people don't go talk to your legislator if you don't have a solution. They're not going to solve it for you. They
Nope.
haven't lived what you lived. They can't even believe what you lived. In fact, they look at you like you're crazy because of what you're saying.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't ever really get into. I highlight my story, like take 2 seconds to say it, and then I move on to what the solutions are because if they knew what you lived, they're not going to believe it. So
Yeah. I think that's another really good point that I think we can kind of bring this to resolution is it's important to tell your story in a specific way that is targeted and maintains your privacy as well. Because there's a lot of folks in the family court space that are bleeding heart, um, telling their story, sharing personal details, and honestly, it will work against them. It will work against them. It can, it has, it will. And you're giving away private information that you own. You're giving away your power in that circumstance. And that's one thing I love about you is that you are not giving away your power. You are mission driven. It is not what happened to you. It's what you're doing to make change in this
right.
field. Well,
Well,
I will definitely be logging in tonight. I look forward to working with you. Please come back on. I would love to hear more about future bills. If you are ever in Connecticut, New York, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, please call me, New Jersey. I will come and meet you and support you. I will bring people. I am here to support you, Robert, because I mean this when I say this. You know, you are the Oscar winner. You are, the figurehead for this movement in many ways. And it's important to have strong, capable, morally compassed leaders. So thank you
yeah.
so much from the bottom of my heart.
Well,
Really
thank you
appreciate
too.
it.
Yeah,
And
thank
we
you
will be
for
in
having
touch.
me.
Of course. I was like, I had goosebumps thinking about it. I will definitely be in touch with you further and I will see you this evening. Please, folks, if you're seeing this, if you're reading about this, please join Robert's movement on his website, robertgarza.us, and become a part of this and help us make actionable change.
Yes, we
All
can't
right.
have a strong nation without having strong families.
Yes, that is we'll leave it at that. Strong nation, strong families. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day, Robert. We'll
You
see you
too.
tomorrow. All right.